Hello everyone, this is Earth Archives. I believe friends in North America should be very familiar with St. Patrick's Day in Western Christianity, but how many friends know that this holiday actually comes from the United Kingdom? What's the story behind this festival? Let's find out together today. Before the show starts, please subscribe, share, and turn on the little bell. This will help us grow faster. Without further ado, the show begins. Picture this. It's the 17th century, and folks in Ireland start getting together every March 17th to commemorate the death of St. Patrick. Now, this dude wasn't just any old saint. He's the guy credited with bringing Christianity to Ireland way back in the 5th century. Talk about leaving a mark on history. But hold up, back then St. Paddy's Day wasn't all about green beer and wild parades. Nope, it was more of a religious feast day, a time for folks to honor their patron saint with some solemnity and maybe a prayer or two. Fast forward a bit, and Irish immigrants start bringing their St. Paddy's Day traditions to other parts of the world. Like the good old US of A. Over time, those traditions got a bit of a makeover. We're talking parades, wearing green, and yes, a pint or two of the black stuff. These days, St. Patrick's Day is like one big global party. From Dublin to New York City, people of all backgrounds come together to celebrate Irish culture, dance a jig or two, and maybe indulge in some festive libations. So, the next time you're sporting your finest shamrock attire and raising a glass to St. Paddy, just remember, you're carrying on a tradition that's been alive and kicking for well over a millennium. Now that's something worth celebrating. Cheers! 1. The real St. Patrick was born in Britain. Our journey begins in Britain, way back in the late 4th century. That's where St. Patrick, the future patron saint of Ireland, is believed to have been born. Now, hold on to your hats, because here comes the wild part. At the tender age of 16, young Patrick gets nabbed by Irish raiders and whisked away to the Emerald Isle. Picture it, Patrick goes from living the teenage dream in Britain to slinging sheep as a slave for a Celtic priest up in what we now call Northern Ireland. But this guy's no ordinary lad. During his 6 years in captivity, he finds solace in his faith, turning to Christianity for strength. Then, one fateful day, Patrick makes a daring escape back to Britain. You can bet that was one epic journey home. But here's where the story takes a turn. Instead of kicking back and enjoying his newfound freedom, Patrick decides to do something downright heroic. He sets his sights on Ireland once again, this time as a missionary. Armed with nothing but his faith and a whole lot of determination, Patrick returns to the land of his captivity, spreading the word of Christianity far and wide. Legend has it he even used the three-leafed shamrock to explain the concept of the Holy Trinity. Talk about creative teaching methods. And the rest, as they say, is history. St. Patrick's tireless efforts helped shape Ireland's religious landscape, earning him a place in the hearts of the Irish people for centuries to come. 2. Street. Patrick was never canonized. Picture this, it's the 5th century, and our man Patrick is doing his thing, spreading the good word of Christianity across the Emerald Isle. Now, you'd think someone as legendary as St. Paddy would have been canonized on the spot, right? Wrong. Here's the deal. Back in Patrick's day, the whole canonization process wasn't really a thing. At all. It wasn't until the year 993 that St. Ulrich of Augsburg snagged the title of being the first saint to get the official canonization treatment. And get this, it took until the 12th century for the Church to finally get its act together and establish a proper canonization process, complete with the Pope giving the final thumbs up. Talk about dragging their feet, am I right? So, where does that leave our dear old St. Patrick? Well, technically speaking, he never got the whole canonization shebang during his lifetime. But hey, that hasn't stopped countless folks from considering him a saint anyway. I mean, think about it, the guy's practically synonymous with Ireland, shamrocks, and all things green. Plus, his tireless efforts to spread Christianity across the land have earned him a spot in the hearts of believers for centuries. 3. There were no snakes around for St. Patrick to banish from Ireland. So, the story goes that our dear old St. Paddy, decked out in his saintly garb, stood tall upon an Irish hillside and waved his holy hand, sending all the slithery snakes packing, never to be seen again. Sounds pretty epic, right? But hold on to your shamrocks, because here's where things get interesting. While banishing snakes might sound like a heroic feat straight out of a medieval epic, there's a teensy tiny hiccup in the tale. Snakes have never actually been chillin' on the Emerald Isle to begin with. Yep, you heard that right. According to the history books, and a little thing called science, there's not a single fossilized snake to be found in all of Ireland. And get this, thanks to some serious geological action during the last ice age, the whole place was basically an icy fortress, way too frosty for any self-respecting serpent to hang around. So, what's the deal with St. Patrick and his snake-slaying shenanigans? Well, some folks reckon it's more of a metaphorical thing. You know, like banishing evil from the land and all that jazz. After all, snakes have been a symbol of wickedness since biblical times, so it kinda makes sense. 4. Leprechauns are likely based on Celtic fairies. The mischievous little leprechaun, that pint-sized symbol of St. Patrick's Day shenanigans. With their fiery red hair and snazzy green outfits, these tiny tricksters have become synonymous with the holiday. But did you know that the original Irish name for these cheeky chaps is Loberson, which basically translates to small-bodied fellow? Yep, these guys might be small in stature, but they've got big personalities and even bigger legends to boot. Now, where did these pint-sized pranksters come from, you ask? Well, it's all rooted in Celtic folklore, where belief in fairies, those magical beings who could weave spells of good or evil, was as common as a pint of Guinness in an Irish pub. In the enchanted world of Celtic tales, leprechauns were the grumpy cobblers of the fairy realm, tasked with mending the shoes of their fellow fairies. But don't let their tiny size fool you. These little guys were known for the quick wit and cunning tricks. Legend has it that if you catch a leprechaun, he'll grant you 3 wishes in exchange for his freedom. But good luck trying to outsmart one of these crafty creatures. They're as slippery as a greased pig at a county fair. 5. The shamrock was considered a sacred plant. Back in the days of the Celts, the shamrock, or seamroy, as they called it, held a special place in their hearts. They saw it as a sacred symbol, signaling the arrival of spring and all the new life that came with it. It was like a green beacon of hope after the long, dark days of winter. But the shamrock's journey didn't stop there. Legend has it that St. Patrick himself, the patron saint of Ireland, used this humble plant to teach the concept of the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. With its 3 delicate leaves, the shamrock became a visual aid for explaining this divine mystery to the Irish people. By the time the 17th century rolled around, the shamrock had blossomed into something more than just a symbol of springtime. It had become a powerful emblem of Irish identity and pride, representing the spirit of a nation yearning to break free from the chains of oppression. So, the next time you spot a shamrock, take a moment to appreciate its rich history and the deep-rooted symbolism it carries. It's more than just a leaf. It's a testament to the resilience and spirit of the Irish people, standing tall against the winds of change for centuries on end. 6. Ireland's only female patron saint, Brigid, has her own holiday. Saint Brigid, a powerhouse of a saint who held sway over a whole array of folks and critters. This fierce lady wasn't just any saint. She was the patron saint of Irish nuns, newborns, midwives, dairymaids, and even the noble cows of Ireland. Born around the year AD 450, Brigid's story kicks off with a pretty wild family tree. Her dad was a pagan king, and her mom, well, she was once an enslaved woman. Talk about a dynamic background. When Brigid finally shuffled off this mortal coil around AD 524, her legacy didn't fade into the mists of time. Nope, the church made sure to keep her memory alive and well. In fact, they even gave her the official saint treatment, dubbing her Saint Brigid for all eternity. And as if that wasn't enough, in 2023, Ireland decided to make February 1st a permanent public holiday in honor of this remarkable lady. It's like a big old party celebrating all things Brigid, and who wouldn't want to join in on that? Cheers to Saint Brigid, the ultimate Irish icon. 7. The first St. Patrick's Day parade was held in America. Imagine this, it's March 17, 1601, in a Spanish colony nestled in what we now call St. Augustine, Florida. Surprising, right? Well, that's exactly where the very first St. Patrick's Day parade went down, all thanks to the efforts of an Irish vicar named Ricardo Artur. Talk about spreading the green across the globe. Fast forward more than a century, and you've got homesick Irish soldiers serving in the English military strutting their stuff through the streets of Boston in 1737. Then, just a few years later, the Big Apple joined the party, with its first St. Patrick's Day parade kicking off in New York City on March 17. The enthusiasm for these parades in cities like New York and Boston only snowballed from there, becoming an annual tradition that brings communities together in a sea of shamrocks and shenanigans. But hold on to your lucky charms, because in 2020 and 2021, the party got put on hold. Yep, you guessed it. The COVID-19 virus crashed the St. Paddy's Parade, forcing cancellations and postponements across the country, including in iconic spots like New York City and Boston. Thankfully, like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the parades made a triumphant return in 2022, proving that not even a global pandemic can keep the spirit of St. Patrick's Day down. 8. The Irish were once scorned in America. The Irish journey to America wasn't always smooth sailing. Back in 1845, a potato blight hit Ireland like a punch in the gut, leaving devastation and hunger in its wake. Imagine this: 1 million souls lost, and another 2 million forced to flee their homeland in search of hope across the sea. Now, picture the scene as these weary travelers, the largest single population movement of the 19th century, set foot on American soil. Instead of open arms and welcomes, they were met with suspicion and scorn. Yep, you heard that right. The Irish refugees were looked down upon as disease-ridden, unskilled, and a drain on the welfare budgets. But hey, the Irish aren't known for backing down from a challenge. Despite facing discrimination and hardship, they rolled up their sleeves and got to work, carving out a new life for themselves in the land of opportunity. And boy, did they leave their mark. From building cities to shaping culture, the Irish Americans proved that resilience and a touch of Irish luck can conquer even the toughest of odds. 9. Corned beef and cabbage was an American innovation. Picture this: Irish immigrants, fresh off the boat and settling into the bustling streets of Lower Manhattan in the late 19th century. Now, they brought a taste of home with them, a love for ham and cabbage. But here's the twist: ham wasn't exactly budget-friendly for these hard-working folks. So, what's a hungry Irishman to do? Enter corned beef, the unsung hero of the immigrant pantry. You see, ships returning from the tea trade in China had barrels of leftover corned beef to spare. And guess who snagged them up? Yep, you guessed it, the Irish. Now, this corned beef wasn't exactly ready to eat straight off the boat. Oh no, it had to go through a little Irish magic first. The beef got a triple bath, boiled not once, not twice, but thrice, to wash away that salty brine. And on that final boil, in went the cabbage, soaking up all that flavor like a sponge. And just like that, a new tradition was born, a blend of Irish heritage and American ingenuity, served up on plates across the land every St. Paddy's Day. So, when you dig into that hearty plate of corned beef and cabbage, remember the journey, from the high seas of China to the bustling streets of New York City. Slauncher. This is Earth Archives. See you in the next episode.